So much of Christmas seems to be subsumed in Black Friday, buying things, and even just the idea that, people start the Christmas season so early. You see things in September, trees going up, and that by the time they get to December 25th, they seem to be exhausted, and all of the Christmas decorations like disappear, when in fact that's really the beginning of the Christmas season. How does someone hold on to Advent and then hold on to Christmas without being subsumed by the culture?
By remembering our faith. We'll be discussing a little bit later in this program 4 levels of happiness as a kind of model of evangelization. Well, the kind of materialism and the kind of the hyperactivity with the shopping and the demonstrations of wealth and so forth, all of that is what we'll be winding up calling level 1 happiness and level 2 happiness. If we concentrate on that, we're not going to be truly happy. I mean, for all intents and purposes, we're going to wind up being not only unhappy, but making other people unhappy as well. So we're advocating that people get up to level 3 happiness, which is contributive. That's giving ourselves away, trying to concentrate on our family. And of course, the 4th level of happiness, which is absolutely essential, which is that level of faith, that level of transcendence, that level of orienting ourselves toward the heavenly kingdom that Jesus has given us. That's really, as they say, the reason for the season. And if we don't keep level 3 and level 4 happiness at the forefront of our minds at Christmas, I think Christmas, with all of its materialistic and ego, comparative, dimensions, and of course, Madison Avenue certainly makes that as manifest as possible because it sells things. But at the end of the day, it won't make us happy. As a matter of fact, it will reveal to us we're so much more than material beings. We're so much more than beings destined for pleasure. We're so much more than beings that are just ego comparative. Who's got the better gifts? Who's got the better house? Who cares? What really matters is, what do we do with our lives, our talents, our gifts, our energy? How do we make an optimal positive contribution to family, to friends, to community, to church, to the kingdom of God? How do we relate to God in the best possible way so that we'll be purified in our love, that we'll be purified in our faith, and that we'll be brought to the heavenly kingdom? If we can bring level 3 and level 4 into the picture as the center, and then let level 1 and 2, the gifts, the hyperactivity, the shopping, and everything else, sort of be on the periphery so that they take their definition from the center, I think it's going to be a much better Christmas. We'll be much happier. The people around us will be much happier, and we'll be living a life that's commensurate with Jesus, whom we want to follow.
And what about that? I mean, you're out in Orange, California, Christ Cathedral, out in California. You've got a governor that's done some things with abortion and euthanasia that are obviously somewhat problematic. There's a sense at this time of the year, many times we hear this, and some people say it's just an issue that's brought up to get people upset. But is there a war, in a sense, on Christmas, in the sense of a true understanding of Christmas? Recently at a mall in New York, they went from having, the Santa Claus displayed to the Ice Palace, and kind of a thing. And it was a pushback against that. Should people be sensitive to watching the kind of the Christ in Christmas being pulled out?
I think it's incredibly important. I mean, when Starbucks went ahead and just said they want to take the Merry Christmas off the cups, when we begin to see, the complete secularization of Christmas, it's also the secularization of the culture. So you've got a real generic secularization going on. It's not just limited to Christmas. Yeah, so we should be really concerned about that. And it's not just going to be secularization in terms of de-Christianizing culture. It's going to be de-religiousizing culture. In other words, every religion is going to suffer as the culture moves progressively toward materialism and ego-comparative satisfaction as the center of its existence. And of course they're going to want to be commensurate with the materialistic ego-comparative philosophy by removing contribution, removing the whole idea of transcendence, not only from Christmas, happiness, but certainly removing it from culture itself, not just for Christians, but for every religion. I think what we're facing is something really disastrous. And you know, there's kind of a recent study that came out, you know, from the American Psychiatric Association, which says pretty clearly that people who are non-religiously affiliated, that means people who, you know, in the Pew survey would be called nuns, N-O-N-E-S. They have no religious profession, no real spiritual life, no sense of transcendence, pretty much your materialistic or ego-comparative level 1, level 2 folks. What they show is that these people who are non-religiously affiliated have significantly increased rates of suicide and suicide attempts, significantly increased rates of impulse aggressivity, that is to say, you know, signs of aggression and discontent, incredibly increased, you know, meaninglessness and despondency in their lives, increased substance abuse, increased familial tensions, all because they are not religiously affiliated, all because they blocked out the transcendent, the religious in our lives. You know, St. Augustine told us, "For thou hast made us for thyself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in thee." He was saying a prayer to the Lord in the confessions, and he's proclaiming to God, "I know you've made us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they rest in thee." And of course, when we block that out of our lives, we block religion out of our lives, we block that sense of our, you know, our desire for perfect truth, love, goodness, beauty, and home, we block out of our lives our need to have that interpersonal relationship with the God who comes, Emmanuel, you know, God with us. You know, if we block it out of our lives, we are alienated, not just from God, we're alienated from ourselves. We're no longer at home here. We can't block out our ultimate home and feel at home even in this world. So we begin to feel things like, you know, a terrific sense of emptiness and alienation, sense of, you know, not being at home here, sense of a deep loneliness within our lives. And of course, that's what precipitates all of the things which the American Psychiatric Association talk about, you know, meaninglessness, despondency, impulse aggressivity, suicide attempts, and suicide successes, and familial tension, substance abuse, etc. So it's yeah, it's a real matter of concern, not just for the churches, but certainly for the churches, not just for individual people, those certainly for them, but for the culture itself.